Alrighty, hello Facebook. Hope everything's well for you on this Wednesday afternoon. Isaac Petcash with Erie News Now, joined right now by Erie County Executive-elect Brenton Davis. Something I'm sure is still really fresh in your mind. The last 24 hours for you I know has been crazy. We talked on the newscast about how just of a whirlwind the last day has been. Is it what you expected? I mean, I know you talked about that you felt really confident that the results were going to go your way, but I mean, was it how you expected the night to go?
I think it was textbook.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was one surprise. I think we expected the tightest campaign to pull around 10,000 votes. And when we saw they only had 8, you know, our battle plan essentially had a plan for 10,000 write-ins. And when we saw the differentials between the state judges and the Campanelli race and the clerk of records race, we knew that there was this 2,000 voter advantage that we gained coming out of the mail-ins that we hadn't even planned for.
Sure.
And still had a pathway to victory.
Again, a great night for you, but I mean, you've said now, the excitement's there, but now the real work begins. And you've talked about wanting to hit the ground running, and you're going to announce your transition team tomorrow. And you believe that it's a team that's going to show really who you really are and not necessarily who people might deem you to be.
Absolutely. Yes, I mean, we've taken great lengths. I mean, I think it's important that all members of our community from all different walks of life, races, creeds, lifestyles have representation and have that voice. And I think it's going to shock people when they find that, you know, we truly have a bipartisan, apolitical effort, if you will, to ensure that we have the right people in the right places at the right times. And really, folks that are truly willing to collaborate, folks that are currently elected, folks that are previously elected, and we're just drawing on all that social capital that's right here in Erie County to do what's better for our community. And ultimately, that collaboration is what that's about.
You're going to be taking this job in the midst of a pandemic, a county that has over $70 million in money from the American Rescue Plan. What does a Davis administration look like? What will be those priorities on day one? Because there are a lot of things with the county that people want changed or people want restructured and they want solidified as well.
So, I mean, my plan, you know, we have a blueprint for jobs. I think economic recovery has to be number one, but with that, we have to have that health aspect of our community. I mean, we can't have a vibrant economy if we're crippled by the COVID-19 pandemic. So these two approaches have to go hand in hand. So, I mean, we've got a nationally recognized model in the health department. I think we need to be smart about this. I think to me, my administration, we aim to follow the science, follow the data, you know, work towards getting the vaccination rates for those that can get vaccinated to increase that. Also now you can see the science behind the new vaccinations for children that are beginning, and I think that can be a great leap towards, you know, open schools and moving away from the mask mandates that, you know, a lot of parents are concerned about in the schools. We can do this, have an open economy and a safe economy, open schools and safe schools, and that needs to be our goal.
A lot of talk about this election, whether it was for you or your opponent, Tyler Titus, was that these are two individuals who have experience in the political sphere, but we don't believe they're necessarily qualified to run. You're both in your mid-30s. You've ran before. To the people who would say maybe, I don't know if Brenton has the qualifications, what would you say, and how do you hope to prove those people wrong?
Well, I mean, to me, I look historically at, you know, the previous administrations, you know, and their degrees and, you know, their life experiences. And sometimes age doesn't necessarily equate to life experience that's applicable to leadership. I spent 21 years in the military. You know, my marquee role in leadership was most recently, I was a senior career management officer overseeing Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware in my battalion. That's 4,500 troops in 92 counties. So, I mean, the military has trained me to lead at that high level, and you pair that with the hard decisions as a private business owner, you know, that's prepared you to hit the ground running. Historically, we've had county executives that haven't had anywhere near that experience, and they've been able to lead. Ultimately, it's about being able to lead an organization that essentially can run itself. You have directors, you put the right people in the right places, and you remove the obstacles and allow them to do their job. And that's what the county executive needs to do.
You and I were talking off camera before we went on Facebook Live here that you feel very confident about the people who are either going to be elected or are currently in county council, as well as other supervisors around the county. But there are going to be people that you're going to have to create those relationships with.
Mm-hmm.
What do you believe is the key to success to doing that? Because regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, half the county's on your side and half the county didn't vote for you because Erie County is a purple county. How do you bring, whether it's people in Power County Council, people that may not see eye to eye with you, how do you work with them? Because it's easier said than done.
Well, I mean, we're already doing it. We hosted the Economic Development Summit in October at Penn State Barron, where we brought together 3 states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York. You know, we had dozens of county commissioners, county executive P.J. Wendell from Chautauqua, you know, folks from Ohio. We're already bringing these folks together. I think the recipe for success here is going to be the apolitical approach. And, you know, I've said it before, the election was over. You know, the election's over today. The Titus campaign has conceded. Now it's time for us to close ranks and move forward as a community. You know, the politicking should be done at this point. Now it's about focusing on good governance and an apolitical or bipartisan approach to bettering our community.
While that is an important part, you know there's still going to be people out there who view this as a Democrat versus Republican sort of a scheme, whether that's people that are on your side, whether that's people who didn't vote for you. How does bringing that community together look like on a day-to-day basis? Because, as we know, in the last year, there's been lots of political turmoil with the division that's been sparked.
Well, I think the change has to start somewhere, you know, and I say, why can't it be us? You know, I would love to be a national example of folks to look at Erie County and say, hey, listen, like, we're just tired of the us versus them, the left versus the right. You know, this is about community, this is about people, you know, and I think we just need to work hard and work together, you know, set the politics aside. And you're going to have naysayers, you're going to have that thorn in the side, you know. I've probably been guilty of being that thorn in my past, you know, but you learn, you live, you move on. And I think that's the importance of really getting this right in this transition, to be able to put the right stakeholders in the room to make the hard decisions that you can work through other people sometimes to solve problems that maybe you can't handle directly one-to-one.
Talking with Brenton Davis, the county executive-elect, as he defeats Tyler Titus. Brenton, I want to first ask you about your strengths, and then ask you about your weaknesses. Your strengths, as you now assume this position in the next couple of months, that you think you'll be able to use for a job like this, a job that has gained more popularity and spotlight in the last year, as we've seen the county executive currently on the air every Wednesday at 3 o'clock with their health briefings. What strengths do you think you'll be able to bring to the table to use as you move forward with this job?
So there's no question about it. I mean, high-level military leadership, you know, I've been an officer in the Army for 13 years. I was enlisted for 8. You know, I think that is the marquee point in my leadership background. You pair that with a master's in economic development from Penn State and 16 years as a business owner, actually creating jobs and understanding what small business owners go from the point where they're just like, hey, I kind of do this as a hobby, and then maybe I want to make it a business, and then you build it up to where you can create dozens of jobs and bring millions of dollars into the economy. I mean, I think those are going to be those key strengths, those 3 things that you bring together to make that triad of leadership for Erie County Executive.
Now, at the same time, nobody's perfect, and I think we all would attest that there are weaknesses that we have in our job. What are some of the things that you see in yourself that maybe you would like to improve upon, that people maybe have called you out on in the past, that you would really like to try to shore up and improve upon? That might not be your strengths now, but you'd like them to be your strengths as you move forward in the county executive.
I would say the one thing I learned would be the echo chambers of social media. I mean, everywhere you look, I mean, social media can be a great tool, but it can also be an Achilles heel. And as a leader, you have to learn that as you move into the political arena and gain notoriety or become elected, you now represent the entire body of people. So your voice is the voice for 268,000 people. So, I mean, to me, I've just completely gotten away from social media. Months and months ago, I deleted all my accounts, and I've turned that over to professional firms. I don't want to get into the whole social media echo chambers, the us versus them, the late night quips. Like, there's no point. So I mean, that would be the first thing. I think the other thing would just be, the maturity of growing through your 20s, into your 30s, and eventually into my 40s. You learn the hard lessons in life, and you realize that you can't do this alone, and you've got to check your ego at the door, and as a infantry officer, like, we're competitive by nature, and that's a hard thing to do, to check your ego. And to me, it's something that you've got to be ready to humble yourself, to realize you don't have all the answers, but you've got 1,200 county employees and consultants and all these people to help you find the right answers, and that's a true testament of leadership.
Brenton, as we take a look at these final results here, you're going to win by somewhere between 4 to 6 points, maybe 8, depending on the final results. But a healthy majority voting for you, but there were also almost 32,000 people who did not put your name down on the ballot last night. What would be your message to the half of Erie County that did not vote for you last night?
Well, I mean, to me, like I said, it's that was the largest majority that we've seen in quite a while. Normally this race is decided by 200 or 300 votes historically, and we're over 3,000. So I appreciate the votes that I got, but for the ones that maybe went a different direction for whatever reason, all I ask is just give me a shot. I mean, this is what we have. So now, I'm willing to give anybody out there, even from those that were slinging mud at me, or even my opponent himself. I want to give everyone a clean slate. Like, it's time for the politics to be over. Let's start with a clean slate. Kathy Dahlkemp or any of that. It's all water under the bridge to me. I'm willing to learn from anybody in or out of county government, any stakeholder. And quite frankly, I'm willing to have any conversation. I'm of the thinking that the only bad conversation to have is the one you didn't have. So to me, my door is going to be open, and I'm going to remain flexible and find the best choice for our community. Whether it be Democrat, Republican, I think it needs to be that best choice for Erie County.
Lastly here, I'm really curious to see when we go back in the history books, because I think this is, I ask anyone who's in an elected official position this. You talk about wanting to put politics aside. You've been in politics for quite some time. You've researched politics. You know the history. Is there a point in American history that you look at the political scheme and you say, I really liked when things were at this point. I'd like to govern based on sort of that time frame. Is there a political figure in particular that you're not necessarily the same as, but you can say that I look up to this person and I'd like to try to govern, try to be like they governed in their time?
So, I mean, there's a lot of, the Roosevelts are a great example. Theodore, FDR, FDR, you look at the examples coming out of the Great Depression, and, not all those things were right. Theodore Roosevelt had a very, salt of the earth kind of air about him. He was a person of the people. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of historic examples, presidents, but I would just say even in the day of the gentleman statesman, where, even with the days when Democrats sat on one side of the table, Republicans sat on the other side of the table, and, they could have their knockdown dragouts in caucus, but then they could all go and have a meal together, have a beer after the fact, and still be neighbors. And I think that's really what we need to encourage ourselves to realize, that Americans, we have more similarities than differences. And you see that this extreme, woke culture, I think, is creating a major thorn in American society as you compare it to other cultures around the world that don't seem to have that influence.
Last question I have for you is I'm sure you're hoping to have more than just one term as a county executive, but after your first term, where would you like to see Erie County at? How would you like to see the county be running? What are your goals? If you had to pick a few major ones that you absolutely are going to hold yourself to hit at the end of your first term, what are they?
So I'd say one is going to be the economic development efforts. I think we need to work really hard to have shovel ground, or turnkey structures to be able to lease through the redevelopment authority. The other thing would be just different performance indicators for jobs and unemployment. The other thing would be a mechanism to finance the community college so it doesn't fall squarely on the backs of taxpayers. You know, I'm real serious about the no new taxes, no new fees, and I know council could ultimately backdoor me in that, but I think working with council and coming forward a plan, working with Senator Laughlin, working with our state representatives, and eventually the new governor next year and the current governor now, to be able to create that mechanism to fund the community college, to fund workforce development efforts. This is a thing that's here. So I mean, to me, I want to make it that model, not of 1960, but 2050. You know, this community college can be the key to workforce development under Dr. Gray. And those are just a couple things that I look forward to accomplishing in the next 4 years.
I'll tell you what, last night was a crazy night for many reasons. It snowed. You know how that works. It's vaccines are continuing to tranche out. And again, congratulations to you, Brenton. I know it was a very hard-fought campaign on both sides. And to be able to have that victory last night, I'm sure it's very sweet. I'm still sure settling in for you as well in a 24-hour span. All right, we're going to be back with Brenton at 6 o'clock on our newscast. Kind of a little Facebook exclusive here. He got a chance to see the behind the scenes of the alert desk. I don't know if you watched last night. His campaign and the people in his headquarters were actually watching us here. So we'll go ahead and keep giving him a little bit of a tour here. And then maybe you can take control of the alert desk one day and see it for yourself, because it's pretty interesting, isn't it? All right, that's Brenton Davis. We will go ahead and get off here on Facebook. Again, thanks again to Brenton for taking